Good morning. I'm Christine Romans in for Joe and Savannah this morning. We start this hour in Florida, where 51 counties are under states of emergency ahead of Hurricane Milton. The storm, which is now a Category 2, packing sustained winds of 100 miles an hour, expected to make landfall near the Tampa Bay metro area on Wednesday as a Category 3. It comes less than 2 weeks after the state was ravaged by Hurricane Helen. Officials are scrambling to get debris cleared as fast as possible to help people brace for another major storm. Several schools closed this week, and evacuation orders are underway across multiple counties as residents race to stock up on gas and supplies. Some people saying they don't want to be caught off guard again.
We want to be safe and prepared this time with the sandbags. Like I said, we never knew that the surge was going to be so high, and it could be high again.
I usually have 20 or 30 gallons in my shed. I'm always prepared for because you never know.
NBC correspondent Jesse Kirsch is live in Sarasota, Florida, which is currently in the path of Hurricane Milton. Jesse, good morning. What are things like there now, and how are people preparing for this?
Yeah, hey, good morning, Christine. It's calm right now, and it's clear, which is something that's a bit of a rarity over the last 24 hours. We've already been seeing rain here. It's not because of Milton yet. It's a different weather system, but it has already been raining, and that is, not making it easier for people to get prepared. That also is something that can increase the flood potential when we do get Milton itself in the next couple days. I can tell you that we've already seen some resources running thin. Bottled water is disappearing off of store shelves. I drove around to multiple stores yesterday trying to find gas cans, and I was not able to. Whether that's because they haven't been restocked from Helen or because people have already grabbed them ahead of Milton is not clear. But either way, that underscores the situation we're in. People are going through the motions again for the second time in less than 2 weeks on getting ready for one of these things. And you can see there, it is a physically exhausting process, not to mention, I'm sure, the mental strain for people who might be trying to get their head around the damage from this last storm and now wondering if they're going to get it even worse this time.
Yeah, I mean, Sarasota is still recovering from Hurricane Helene less than 2 weeks ago. So they're recovering from one and preparing for another at the same time, a unique experience.
Yeah, no question. And I want to emphasize a couple things here, right? If you had something like roof damage, of course, you're probably worried about rain getting in the way that you may not have been during the last storm. So there are any kinds of vulnerabilities to properties that we haven't been able to see firsthand yet because we just got to town. But, the kinds of things I'll be looking for. But I think the biggest thing in our minds right now is all of the debris that is out there. I saw a small pile of debris, unclear if it was just trash that was being thrown away, but presumably, 10 days or so after a hurricane, it might be stuff that people had pulled to the sidewalk from flooding inside a property. All of that becomes flying projectiles in a hurricane. And I was in the eye wall for Hurricane Helene in Perry, Florida, and there was stuff flying around in that. So if you bring 100-mile-per-hour winds back into play, and this time you've got that much more loose stuff flying around, right? Floorboards that might be ripped up, drywall, tarps, furniture, things that people have had to throw away because it has been destroyed by a hurricane. All of that could potentially be in the air, and I think that we'll be keeping an eye on how the wind might be more of a factor in terms of risk to life than it typically is, because what we're usually most worried about is the storm surge in a hurricane. But I think there's just that much more stuff that could be flying around in the air, and that's something that we're going to be keeping an eye on.
Sounds so dangerous. What are you hearing from officials right now, Jesse?
The debris is one of the things. State officials have said it's a 24-hour operation. They even have the Florida National Guard involved in getting debris cleaned up. So that is something that they are clearly worried about. We know officials have also got resources and personnel pre-staged already. That's something that often goes on in a hurricane situation. And we also know that some mandatory evacuations in Florida along the Gulf Coast have already been issued. So we're days out, and already people are being told to pack up and leave town with something expected. And I do want to stress one more thing, Christine. This is far from our first hurricane this season, especially in this area of Florida. But a lot of what we've been dealing with has been to the north of where we are right now. And of course, any loss of life is tragic, but we're talking about larger population centers that could be taking a more direct hit this time. And so that is also something, to be keeping an eye on. I'm sure something that's top of mind for officials is just that much more of an amplified risk to large population centers than we've seen with the earlier storms this season. But again, even those have been deadly, and all of them are heartbreaking for people along this stretch of Florida's coast. And we, are bracing for yet another one here.
Bracing. All right, Jesse, thank you so much. Later this hour, we'll talk to an official in Pinellas County, Florida, about how Tampa and other cities are preparing for Hurricane Milton, as many people there are still recovering from Hurricane Helene, which slammed the area less than 2 weeks ago as a Category 4. All right, let's bring in NBC meteorologist Michelle Grossman for the latest on Milton's path as it appears to be headed straight for Florida's Gulf Coast. Michelle, good morning.
Good morning, Christine. Such a unique path. We do not see this path very often, and this is going to be a high-impact storm. We are talking about 15 inches of rain in some spots, life-threatening storm surge, certainly flooding. I like how Jesse mentioned that debris already scattered across the grounds, and the potential of 100-mile-per-hour winds. So we are going to be talking about this for days to come. We're about 60 hours away from landfall, so this is when you need to take the warning seriously. The latest on this, we're already up to a Category 3 storm. This just came in. I actually didn't see this until right now, so it must have just popped in. Winds at 120 miles per hour. Like all season long, these storms continue to overachieve. We are looking at overproducing storms in terms of rainfall, in terms of storm surge, in terms of winds, and this will be another storm that we're going to see that. So we're looking at winds at 120 miles per hour. It's moving to the southeast at 8 miles per hour, and it's going to continue to move across the Gulf. Very warm, bath-like at this time, and that's just the fuel that it needs. Now we're looking at that flood threat already because we're seeing the rain falling already on this Monday. We saw it over the weekend. This is a little different. We have a frontal boundary that's kind of draped across the area. We're seeing waves of moisture kind of tapping into that tropical moisture. So we're already wet, and then we're going to see Tuesday and Wednesday those rain chances only increasing. Because of that, we have 15 million people impacted by flood watches, not, surprising, all along Florida. And we're going to continue to see these alerts kind of expand as we go throughout the next couple of days. So let's talk about today, tomorrow, and then what we expect for Wednesday. Today, we're going to start to see, and we are seeing those outer bands kind of skirting across the Yucatan Peninsula. And then it's going to move further into the Gulf. We're going to see that rain increasing in Florida. We're seeing that rain right now. We're going to see that on Tuesday as well. And then Wednesday, really seeing that rain falling. Tomorrow, Milton will continue to strengthen as it crosses that really warm Gulf. The winds will increase, the storm surge will increase, and the rain will increase. Now, keep in mind, I know we say this time and time again, but it's so important. The biggest cause of death when it comes to a tropical system is the storm surge. It's the water. It's the wall of water that pushes on shore. So that's where you see people drowning, and that's where you see the devastation. Now, as we go throughout Wednesday, we're going to see it really strengthen. The only good news is it's a smaller in size storm in terms of comparison to Helene, but still a really powerful one. So this is Wednesday. We're expecting landfall later Wednesday, maybe now overnight into Thursday. Things are starting to slow down a bit because we are still 60 hours away. So we're going to see some changes. We're going to see some changes of the track as well. So that storm will cross the peninsula by later on in the evening. It looks like the bullseye right now is central Gulf Coast. Let's look at that path. Notice as we go throughout time here, we're going to see it strengthen to a Category 4 storm by Tuesday morning, by tomorrow morning, and then we're going to see it go throughout the Gulf here, and it probably will make impacts around a Category 3, could be a Category 4. Either way, we're looking at a major hurricane as it makes landfall. And this is where we're seeing this line. Now, you want to pay attention to the cone, but here's the line just south of Tampa, north of Fort Myers, and something that we're going to watch very, very closely. We don't often see a landfall there. Tropical alerts have already been posted. These were posted around 5 o'clock this morning, and we're looking at hurricane watches. That is in the pink here for places like Tampa, also Fort Myers. Looking at tropical storm watch where you see the yellow, Tallahassee, also down to Key West. So this is large in location, real estate, because we're going to see those winds really blowing all throughout the state of Florida, and also those rains, the rain falling, and also the storm surge. Flooding rains, we're going to see up to 15 inches in some spots. So generally 5 to 10, we're going to see flash flooding, river flooding as we go throughout time here. And Jesse kind of alluded to this. We're looking at winds possibly up to 100 miles per hour. That's dangerous in itself. We're going to bring down trees. The ground is so wet already. We're going to see power outages, but we have so much debris still from the last storm that we're going to see that blowing around. Typically we say kind of bring everything in if you can. It's going to be hard to really clean up as we go throughout the next couple of days because soon those the evacuation orders are in place. Now we are concerned about this. This will probably be the biggest takeaway, I think, as we go throughout this storm system. We're looking at storm surge. Look at that, up to 12 feet in some spots. Where you see that red line along the coast, that is a wall that is 12 feet tall. I'm about 5'3", so that is much taller than me, and that just moves. It's water, salt water moving over dry land, and that is very, very dangerous. I do want to do a quick look of the rest of the country because, of course, the biggest story will be Milton over the next couple of days, but we do have some rain falling in New England. Some could be heavy at times, could see some storms as well. The middle of the country looking really nice, sunny nice, lots of sunshine, feeling a little fall-like in the Great Lakes. Another big story still is the record heat. We are looking at dangerous temperatures into the triple digits. This continues to be a problem out west and in the southwest. So do want to be careful there as well. But of course, our focus will be on Milton over the next several days. So important because we've got 60 hours to go.
Yeah, only a day or two to prepare.
Yeah.
All right, Michelle, thank you so much.
Sure.
And as Florida prepares for the arrival of Hurricane Milton, people in North Carolina are just starting to put their lives and communities back together after Hurricane Helene devastated much of the western part of the state. Now, President Biden is ordering an additional 500 active duty troops to that area to help with the recovery efforts. For more on this, let's bring in NBC News correspondent Antonia Hilton. She is in Burnsville, North Carolina. That's about 25 miles north of Asheville and joins us now with the latest. Good morning, Antonia. You know, Helene just 10 days ago hit there. What can you tell us about the cleanup efforts right now in the area?
Hey, Christine, you know, there is still so much work to be done here in the Burnsville area, which is a smaller, more rural community, and in Asheville, where by now everyone has seen this almost post-apocalyptic kind of scenes down by the River Arts districts and in many neighborhoods there. Look, families, business owners, locals, they've just been going out and doing a lot of the work themselves, moving trees, trying to clean debris. But this is incredibly complex work. I mean, we're talking about mudslides, massive rocks that have rolled down mountainsides, roads that have collapsed in part into bodies of water and rivers, and homes that have just floated away off of their foundations. So the level of work here, what we're hearing from residents, it's not just a matter of weeks. We're talking months before things start to feel like they're back to normal. People are still hearing that in some cases they may not have running water for weeks. So that, of course, raises the level of concern and desperation. People unable to cook their own food at home, to clean their own clothing, to start doing the cleanup with all of this mud that many people here are very worried could be toxic to them. And so people are doing the best they can. Right now, I'm at a sort of shopping center that really just the community here, they've sort of risen up and created for themselves, where people are sharing goods, they're bringing what they can, and people can come through here throughout the day to gather what they need, because that is sort of the center, is just what are the basic needs these families have right now, and then we can get to the next stages of recovery after that, Christine.
So then, Antonia, as this new week begins here, what are the priorities then for the recovery effort?
Well, it's a multi-stage, multi-agency, multi-pronged process. So the military is here in North Carolina, not only by foot on the ground, checking in on residents, but also taking to the skies in helicopters. No matter what part you really are or what area you're in Western North Carolina, you hear helicopters throughout the day. But it's really challenging. I actually got the chance to fly with the National Guard, and you get to see how difficult it is from that aerial view. So you look down, you can see there's thick woods and brush. You're looking for a place to land your helicopter, but it can be really complicated. And then sometimes the people who are coming in to give aid, they are well-meaning, but they don't know these Blue Ridge Mountains. And this is an environment that, unless you grew up here and you really understand how dangerous the terrain in some of these places can be, you might land and then become a liability yourself because you're getting stuck in the mud. There's no cell service. You don't actually know how to navigate to find some of the more remote areas. And so what we're hearing from residents here is that while they know people are trying to help them and give them support, they are also at sometimes very frustrated by that support because it is slow. And we're now 10, 11 days out here. And there are people in some of these sort of landlocked, shut off areas where roads have collapsed who are still waiting to see evidence that that support is coming. And so it's here, it's on the ground, but it is really challenging. And so it is going to take days more in some cases for some of the federal workers who have made it here and who keep arriving to actually reach some of the people who are the most in need, Christine.
Over the weekend, you reported about complaints from GOP lawmakers in Washington critical of how FEMA is handling the response to Helene. What are local officials' views of the job the agency is doing?
Yeah, I think it's important to put some of that criticism in two camps, too. So we have the legitimate concerns from locals here about the speed at which aid is reaching them. And it can feel really slow here. Again, more than a week out, and people still saying, I don't have a way to flush a toilet at home. My kids haven't had proper nutrition or food in days. We spent time talking to people right here yesterday experiencing some of that. And then there is also just an element of misinformation and rumors that have spread, both on the local level and national level. People saying that FEMA is capping their aid to families at $750. That is not true. In fact, FEMA has already approved tens of thousands of applications and millions of dollars in aid, and we expect that to increase soon, Christine.
All right, Antonia, thank you so much. A lot of work to do there. All right, today marks 1 year since the Hamas terror attack on Israel, and Israelis and Jewish people around the world will remember the more than 1,200 killed that day and the remaining hostages. The conflict created that day showed no signs of letting up anytime soon as Israel ramps up its attacks on the Iranian-backed militant group Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. NBC News correspondent Erin McLaughlin has more.
Israel ramping up its military strikes as the region braces for its response to Iran's latest missile attack. In southern Beirut, some of the heaviest bombardments of the war as Israel targets Hezbollah, and Hezbollah fires rockets into Israel, striking a building in Haifa. In northern Gaza, 300,000 Palestinians once again ordered to leave their homes as the Israelis prepare for yet another ground offensive. As Israel bombed a school and a mosque in the central part of the Strip, the Israeli military claiming both were being exploited by Hamas.
We will never stop!
In the United States, hundreds gathered for a rally in Central Park to remember over 1,000 lives lost on October 7th. Just one of several commemorations in cities around the world. Palestinians, too, in mourning and global protest for the more than 40,000 Gazans killed, according to the Palestinian Health Ministry, and the growing death toll in Lebanon.
Murdered, kidnapped.
A quarter of the residents of kibbutz near Oz were either killed or kidnapped when Hamas militants stormed the border a year ago. Rita Lifshitz shows us where Carmela Dan and her granddaughter were burned alive.
They were hugging each other. That's how they found them. How come the army was not here in 8 hours?
A year later, you still don't have the answer to
Something is not right.
Rita takes us to the home of her father-in-law, 84-year-old Oded Lifshitz, now kidnapped, his beloved piano burnt to ashes. She shows us where they once enjoyed the sunset together, with a view of Gaza. Now Oded is so close, yet so far.
Before talking about peace, we need our 101 hostages back home now.
All right, Erin, thank you so much for that. Today, Israelis are pausing to remember those that lost their lives 1 year ago in that large-scale terror attack by Hamas that has forever changed the Middle East. While today may be a day of commemoration, the war still goes on. This morning, Hamas fired rockets from Gaza into Israel as the IDF's air and ground offensive against Hezbollah in southern Lebanon grows. NBC News international correspondent Matt Bradley is in the region, joins me now from the Lebanese capital with more on this. Matt, good morning. You know, a really painful, somber anniversary of the October 7th attacks. How are Israelis and others reflecting today?
Well, obviously, this has changed the face of the entire Middle East, and Israelis are commemorating this with a series of ceremonies throughout the entire country, mostly focused on Tel Aviv, a place called Martyrs Square, which has been the site of protests for much of the past year, demanding that the hostages be released, and in some of the towns and kibbutzim around the area of the Gaza Strip. We've been seeing very solemn moments there this morning, as well as the site of the Nova Music Festival, where we saw at dawn a ceremony timed just for the moment when Hamas militants attacked that music festival, killing hundreds of people. But we're also hearing from Hezbollah and Hamas. They released statements saying that they were vindicated in their choice to engage in this fight on October 7th, and saying that they are going to continue their fight against the Israelis. So they are also mentioning and marking this day, this solemn moment a year on. But there's also been continued violence. A year later, continued attacks by Hezbollah, firing missiles into northern Israel and from the Gaza Strip. Hamas is firing missiles, this time toward Tel Aviv. This just goes to show that a year later, there has been no real battleground solution to what started a year ago. And in fact, some of those ceremonies in Israel were even constrained by Israeli regulations against the crowding of people, against huge gatherings of people, as the Israelis decide how to retaliate against Iran, yet another new front in this war that started on October 7th. So there is a lot of commemoration, a lot of thinking, a lot of reflection, and also a lot of fighting that's still going on.
The U.S. has tried repeatedly to negotiate peace talks in the region, but Benjamin Netanyahu, he has forged ahead in his assault on Hezbollah in Lebanon. On a day like today, you know, we have the reminder of how this all began and what it has led to. Is there any discussion about a ceasefire or hostage exchange or any kind of diplomatic movement today?
Well, the Israelis have essentially backed away from any suggestion of a ceasefire, both with Hamas in the Gaza Strip and with Hezbollah here. And in fact, as I mentioned just a moment ago, they're now preparing a retaliation against Iran that threatens to escalate this regional war even more. So actually, there was a great article that was published in the New York Times today by some of my colleagues there that discussed how the Israelis and Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister, had essentially agreed to a deal that could have halted the fighting between Israel and Hezbollah here in Lebanon for 3 weeks, but instead backed away under pressure from Netanyahu's right-wing ministers. So and then also on top of that, we saw that there was an effort to try to create some sort of peace in the Gaza Strip. There was a lot of movement there, and then the Israelis went ahead and killed Ismail Haniyeh, which actually started a lot of the fighting with Iran. And now they've killed Hassan Nasrallah, who was about to agree to a deal to end the fighting here in Lebanon.
All right, Matt Bradley, thank you so much. Let's bring in Avi Meir. He's the former editor-in-chief of the Jerusalem Post, and he joins us now to give some perspective on this anniversary. Good morning, somber morning. It's been a year since the October 7th attack. Can you give us a sense of what the mood of the country is like today?
Well, Christine, I remember the September 11th attack. I was a high school senior in the D.C. area. I remember the trauma of that day, but how once the day was over, we were able to start healing as a nation. The challenge here in Israel is that the trauma is still ongoing. There are still 101 hostages in Gaza whose fate is unknown. There's still tens of thousands of Israeli families that have been displaced from their homes and have no sense of whether they will ever see their homes ever again. There are thousands upon thousands of families that are grappling with loss, with the deaths of loved ones, with injuries, traumatic injuries, emotional injuries of a variety of kinds. And so this is a country that is still very much admired of the trauma of that day, and we don't know exactly where we're going to emerge from it.
And then we have in the last year the bombardment and the ground operations in Gaza, huge loss of life there. We have seen several escalations in the conflict in recent weeks between Israel and Hezbollah. And there's still an estimated 101 hostages in Gaza. Negotiations have stalled. You know, are there Israelis who feel like the hostages have been forgotten here?
Well, there is some concern that with the escalation in recent weeks between Israel and Hezbollah, of course, Hezbollah has been bombing Israel since October the 8th, but only now has Israel started to respond, that the hostages have been left behind. And there are many voices, particularly amongst the family members of those hostages, who have said, but wait, we still have 101 human beings who are in Gaza. We don't know how many of them are still alive. We know that they're being held under deplorable conditions, being subject to all sorts of abuse. The immediate concern needs to be bringing them home. And unfortunately, it seems like those voices have been largely drowned out by the events of recent weeks.
When Iran attacked Israel with that barrage of missiles last week, Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister, said Iran will pay. We have yet to see what that retaliation is going to look like. But I wonder, a year in, you know, does this whole situation get much worse before it gets better? Where's the off-ramp?
Look, the off-ramp is very simple. We need a ceasefire. We need Hamas to lay down its weapons and release those 101 remaining hostages. We need Hezbollah to stop bombarding northern Israel and let those tens of thousands of Israeli families who haven't seen their homes in a year to return to those homes. And we need Iran to stop playing such a horrific, pernicious, and toxic role across the Middle East. That is what will end this conflict. And until Israel feels that it is able to enable its citizens to return home, it'll have no choice but to continue to defend itself. And that's what we see happening right now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.